Fade-in. An international airport stretches beneath a dark, quiet sky as runway lights cut through the night like a continuous chain of beacons. A commercial airliner descends steadily from clouds, its landing lights piercing through the darkness. The approach is smooth, controlled, and unremarkable, the kind of landing repeated countless times across global aviation networks every hour. At 11:42 p.m., the aircraft touches down, its tires meeting the runway with a brief screech before reverse thrust activates, and the plane decelerates into a routine taxi towards a sign gate. Nothing about the arrival suggests anything unusual. Inside the terminal, passengers disembark calmly, collecting luggage, checking phones, and moving through customs as ground crew connect equipment and unload cargo containers. Airport operations log the arrival without hesitation, marking another successful flight completion in the system. Everything appears ordinary, consistent, and fully documented. 72 hours later, during a routine audit of flight records, an aviation investigator notices an inconsistency buried within standard database entries. On screen is a complete list of arrivals, departures, aircraft registrations, and flight histories. Every entry is accounted for except one. Flight 782 exists in the arrival system, confirming its landing, but there is no corresponding record anywhere in the departure logs. Initial assumptions point toward a database error, a common occurrence in large-scale aviation systems where millions of records are processed daily. However, as investigators begin cross-referencing multiple independent systems, the anomaly deepens rather than resolves. There is no departure clearance recorded, no radar track indicating takeoff, no flight plan activation logged, and no voice communication transcripts confirming departure clearance. The aircraft is confirmed to have landed. The passengers are verified as real individuals. The crew is authenticated. The airline acknowledges the flight's arrival without dispute, yet the departure airport shows no evidence that the aircraft ever left. Investigators initially attribute the discrepancy to potential software corruption or incomplete data synchronization between aviation databases. However, redundancy checks across multiple systems produce identical gaps. Primary radar archives show no departure trace. Secondary surveillance data is incomplete or missing. ADS-B tracking systems contain no corresponding flight initiation. Even air traffic control audio archives, typically preserved for safety and legal review, contain no record of communication linked to Flight 782's departure. To understand the severity of the anomaly, investigators review how modern aviation tracking systems function. Commercial aviation relies on layer redundancy, where every movement of an aircraft generates multiple independent records. Before departure, a flight plan is submitted and approved by aviation authorities. Air traffic controllers assign clearance routes based on weather conditions, airspace congestion, and safety protocols. Once an aircraft begins taxiing, ground movements are logged. Departure clearance is issued via radio communications, which are simultaneously recorded and archived. When an aircraft takes off, radar systems track its ascent, while ADS-B transponders continuously broadcast its position, altitude, and velocity to both civilian and military monitoring stations. Each system operates independently, meaning the failure or deletion of one record would still leave traces in others. A retired air traffic controller interviewed during the investigation explains that the simultaneous absence of all departure records should be impossible under normal circumstances. Every aircraft movement generates overlapping data trails, and those trails are preserved across different jurisdictions and systems precisely prevent loss or manipulation of flight history. In control tower simulations reconstructed during the investigation, standard communications are reviewed. A pilot requests taxi clearance for Flight 782, and ground control responds with assigned runway instructions. These interactions are typically recorded in multiple formats and stored in both local and centralized aviation databases. Despite this established structure, Flight 782 presents a contradiction that challenges the integrity of aviation record systems. While arrival data remains intact and verified across airport systems at the destination, departure data at the origin appears to have never existed. Investigators begin to suspect that the issue is not accidental but deliberate, though no immediate explanation accounts for how such coordinated absence could occur across multiple independent systems. As digital forensic teams expand their review, attention shifts toward potential vulnerabilities in aviation data networks, including unauthorized access points, corrupted synchronization channels, or insider interference capable of altering or deleting historical records without triggering system alerts. At this stage of the investigation, authorities escalate the case to international aviation oversight bodies. Radar archives are secured, communication logs are isolated for forensic analysis, and airline dispatch systems are placed under review. The deeper investigators dig, the more they begin to realize that Flight 782 does not simply represent a missing record, but a systemic contradiction within the infrastructure of global aviation tracking. The aircraft landed. The passengers confirmed the journey. Yet the system that should have recorded its origin provides nothing at all, as though the flight had materialized mid-journey, without ever leaving the ground. The investigation continues, but one question now dominates every briefing, every report, and every analysis. If an aircraft can arrive without any official record of departure, what else within the global aviation system might be missing without anyone noticing? The case file is marked as unresolved pending further inquiry, but internally investigators acknowledge a growing concern that what they are witnessing is not a simple data error, but a deliberate and sophisticated breach of aviation record integrity. And somewhere within the missing data, something or someone ensured that Flight 782 began its journey in silence, without leaving a trace. To be continued.